Hi, my name is Barbie Enrico, and I'm here to welcome you to Pitch Tips Zoomcast, and where venture capitalist Fred Haney gives feedback to CEOs of startup companies to help them raise capital. Fred is an experienced venture capital fund manager, angel investor, entrepreneur, founder Monday Club, and author of The Fundable Startup, one of the best selling books about startup companies getting funded. So let's find out what Fred has to say to today's CEO.
Hi, and welcome to the Pitch Tips Zoomcast. I'm Fred Haney, your host. I've dealt with hundreds of startups, and I've been the co-founder of 6 companies. And I'm trying to pull all that experience together here in these short interviews with budding entrepreneurs. The idea is that you get to look into conversations between an entrepreneur and a venture capitalist. We're here today with Chad Van Calster, who's the CEO of QOLOS. And in a minute, we'll give Chad a chance to tell us about uh, his company. What we're trying to do is help him improve his chances of getting funded, whether it's improving his pitch, the packaging, the substance. We'll see if we can identify a few issues and help him improve his pitch. He's in the process of trying to raise funding for his company. And our goal is also to help you increase your chances of getting funded by listening in and watching the dynamic between an entrepreneur and an investor. Chad, why don't you give us a brief introduction? Tell us a little about yourself and how you got involved with this project, and a quick little elevator speech about what QOLOS is about.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me on. This is actually my 3rd startup. I had a fantasy football software in the early 2000s. I sold that in 2008. Had a web design company prior to this, and which is kind of how QOLOS was developed. We had some customers that needed a solution solved, and we started building it, and then had this light bulb moment that QOLOS was the business I should be in. So a couple years ago, I stepped back and I just kind of rewrote the whole program and started the company and got everything rolling, and have some traction, have some customers that are using the product, and yeah, now it's ready to scale. So I'm ready to get this in front of investors and see what they think and move forward.
Great. We'll have you go through a slightly longer version of your pitch. First, I want to set context a little bit for you and for viewers. It's important to understand the mentality, especially of venture capital investors, when you talk to them. A venture capital investor probably has 50 business plans on his desk. He's on 10 boards of directors. He's got lots of people trying to call him on the phone, send him emails, and get him into meetings. So he has a terrible time management problem. And one of the things I learned in my very early days of managing large venture capital fund, 3i Ventures, was that I just couldn't afford to get all wound up and excited about every deal I see. I mean, as a venture capitalist, you see lots of really interesting ideas, really big ideas, things that have a lot of potential. And you can spend a lot of time getting excited about them. But one of the lessons you learn in order to manage your time as an investor is the real trick is, if you're going to say no fast. You don't want to spend a whole lot of time on a project, weeks or days or weeks, and then end up saying no. So the thought process, and you'll see a little bit of that here with me, the thought process is, if I'm going to say no, if I think this company's going to struggle, what would the reasons be? What are the issues? I'm going to make a little mental list of some of the issues, things I would be concerned about. And then if we got into more of a due diligence process, I would be going through that list of issues and saying, can I get comfortable with this one? Can I get over it? Is there a way to fix it? Can we manage around it? Maybe it's acceptable. I can just live with it. And you go through your list, and hopefully you get to a point where you can either manage it or live with it. And then you go ahead and commit to make the investment. So it's important to understand that kind of thought process. It feels like kind of a negative thought process, and it is, but it's that way because investors really have this serious time management problem. So Chad, why don't you go ahead and fire up your screen share and walk us through a little more detailed version of your pitch.
Absolutely. So again, my company is QOLOS. We call ourselves a Shopify for subscription-based services. As I mentioned before, I had a web design company before this, and one of our biggest pain points was around automated monthly billing. We had customers that were spending $15, maybe $20 a month in hosting fees, and we automated that process in the back end so that the payments were coming out every month. But when the payment would fail, we found it difficult to go, connect with that customer again. We'd have to call them up on the phone. To try to get them on the phone would be difficult. To give us their credit card information to collect that $15. And at some point it was like, is this even worth $15 to call this person that many times? So we started building a solution around that, which was our QOLOS platform. And we had customers that started had the same needs that we had. And so we started putting it in. And that's kind of how QOLOS became a business. So the subscription model in itself is something that's really growing. You can see the chart here. The subscription model is really attractive for the small business owner because what it does is it streamlines the revenue that you're making every single month. And because you're streamlining that revenue and it's constant, you can make business decisions. So if you think of a service-based business, they're always reliant on the next sale. And so you might be trending up, you might be, having a bunch of new customers this month, and you're like, okay, how am I going to handle all these customers? I need to hire more people. But you can't trust that next month that same kind of growth is going to happen, the same kind of customers are going to come in. So you're going to hire that employee. But if you switch to a subscription model where that income is guaranteed to come in every single month, you can start making business decisions on whether or not you can hire just because you're guaranteed that income. So that's why this model is really trending because it's really attractive. It's a better way to run your business. So these are just a few of the success models that everybody's trying to go after. Everybody knows of Trunk Club and Dollar Shave Club and all these companies. All they really are is just a product or a service that they decided to do on a monthly subscription. And those businesses have been so successful that everybody's trying to mimic that kind of success. So these are just a few stats. Some of the key ones are the bottom number is really huge. Just looking from 2019 to 2025, there's going to be an increase of $450 billion in the subscription model. So that's just a trend that's happening, and it's because it's such a successful model. So businesses today are struggling with the revenue model and how to do that. Like I said, with my web design company, I was having the same problems and collecting and all those kinds of things. And there's a little ability to sell online. There's high website integration costs. That's one of the big parts of why we started this. Was small businesses are actually looking to do the subscription model. When they start looking at it and how to achieve it, how to manage it, they're starting to talk to developers because they don't know how to do it. And the developers are like, okay, it's going to cost this much, tens of thousands of dollars. And we're like, well, that's way too much. That's way over my budget. They don't have a budget of a Verizon or AT&T, with a whole IT staff to integrate all their systems so it's all seamless to the end user. So there's high website integration costs. And again, the difficult recovery of failed payments. Why isn't there a panel for the customer to log in to update their own information? Things like that. So that's why we came up with QOLOS. So QOLOS is kind of a two-sided thing. One, it helps sell these packages online. So really the idea is that somebody would, one of our customers would come up, sign on with QOLOS, create their own landing page, and then they would link to it from their website or social media accounts or anything like that. The customer would land on these pages and be able to check out themselves. So many times I see companies, I see a local boot camp doing that all the time. It's a gym, you go work out there, they're advertising, they're doing a great job in their advertising, but their call to action is call us. And it's just so frustrating to me as a person that's been in website design and marketing, because I know the end user isn't going to call. They don't want to. They want to be able to check out online and pay for the services online. And that's what this does for you. Option, you can have as many different options as you want, but the person will be able to check out here, choose their option, check out. We save their credit card information, so that automates the process after the sale. And then if the payment fails, it says, hey, come back to your website, not a competitor's website, or not a different website like recurly.com or something like that. It's yourdomain.com. And they go back there, log in, and they can update their information. So we make it really just super simple to sign up and get started with those subscription plans. So if you want to get started, you'd be up and selling in a day or two. It's that simple. So some of our key features, I really kind of focus on that first one, the easy subscription cancellation. So they can log in and cancel their service right there. And that is huge. And I don't think people realize how big that is sometimes. I'll give you an example. I was in a boot camp where I was going every single morning. I had emergency surgery. I couldn't go anymore for a few months. And I called up to cancel my services. They said, no, you have to come in to do it. So the bottom line is I never went in. I canceled my credit card with them and I never went in and never went back. And I didn't go back because it wasn't easy to cancel. So that's really a selling option to say, hey, it's easy to cancel with us. If you don't like what you're paying for, we're not going to lock you into this. And so then some of the other features, you can invoice through here. There's memberships available. And the API is a big one because now you can create custom apps and whatever your developer would need to really create a custom solution if you need something more than what QOLOS has to offer. So our big differentiator goes into that just easy sign up. It's we don't have to integrate anything into your website. So all of our competitors, if you want to do something and you want to have signups on your website, you need to go through a developer, have them go through their API and set everything up so that it works. And it's just bottom line, it's costly, and that's really what it is. So we make it really easy. You get a landing page, you get a login section, everything. It's plug and play. You can be ready in a day or two, like I said. And then when it comes down to pricing, our monthly cost is either the same or lower than our competitors. And this is our revenue model. So anywhere from $50 to $850 a month. It depends on what your revenue volume is. There's some overages fees there. The overages are only on the overage revenue. So if you were in the basic plan and you did $11,000 that month, it would be the $150, and then you'd pay overages on the $1,000. But obviously, you can go into the upper package there, and you'd have a different revenue model to work off of. We are working on some enterprise level pricing, but our target market is really that small business that would fit in any one of these categories. And this is our team. So it's mostly me. I'm a 3-time founder. Like I said before, I had a fantasy football software, then the web design company. So I exited the web design company to focus on this full time. And then we have our 2 advisors for the company. Both of them are IT staff, so we're pretty well on this IT side of things. So our total market is $25 billion. We got that looking at the 8.5 million small businesses that are in the United States that could be subscription based. We kind of average our packages out. Most of our monthly users will be in that $150 or $550 range for $250 average monthly cost, and that's how we calculated that $25 billion total addressable market. In the short term, we just want to really focus ourselves on on certain markets, instead of being available to everybody. This totally fits a lot of different genres and niches and all that stuff. But to just really focus on something, we're focusing on heating and air conditioning businesses and gyms and boot camps. The heating and air conditioning businesses are adding a yearly subscription. They're always doing it on an annual basis for servicing your air conditioning unit and your heating unit. And they're doing it annually because it's a pain in the butt for them to do it uh, on a monthly basis. So our pitch to them is, hey, we're going to make it easy for you, and you're going to be able to sell these things a lot easier because your customers are more willing to pay $24 a month than a $200 check up front. So that's our big pitch to them. Plus, they're not able to sell these online at the moment. So they have the same thing as the boot camps we're doing. Call us. That's their advertisements. So we want to make it really easy for them to be able to sell these as well. So that's our total mark. That's who we're going to focus on in the early stages of the company, and then so that brings our serviceable attainable market down to $8 million when we get down to that laser. I call it laser focus marketing. And this is just to show some of the other verticals that we could go after, farm to table or SaaS companies or seafood delivery. We kind of joke because I was having a meeting with one of the advisors the other day in a little strip mall, and there was a candy store right across from us. We're like, man, that candy store could be doing candy on a monthly basis, and come in and get this candy of the month or something like that, and you get it for free. And anything like that, popcorn, cleaning services, and anything like that. I could find a way to come up with a subscription model for any of these businesses. So this is where we're at today. The company started in mid 2018. Like I said, I totally rewrote the whole system back then. I wasn't focused on sales at all. I was just focusing on getting the product done. We did have some customers. We brought in new customers during that time. We were just very strategic on how many customers we bring in. And so this is our total. Since then, we've done about $15 million in transactions. That's how much we processed through our system. We had one customer that was putting about $500,000 a month at the end of the term. And we were able to generate about $2.5 million in total revenue during that time. So again, not really focused on sales, just focused on product development up to this point. So really, we're at a phase now with the raise that we will focus on marketing side of the business. So that's really where I wanted to get the company. Like, okay, the products, it's never done, so let's not say that, but it's to a point where we can market it, we can start to scale it, and the money that would be used for the funding is going to go mostly to marketing and sales. And that's it. That's how you can contact me if anybody would like to get a hold of me.
Okay, good job. Thank you. So why don't you take off the screen share? Good. Okay, great. Just on that last slide, for investors, I think you want to show them, doesn't have to be a spreadsheet, but some kind of a little chart that shows what revenue looks like year by year for a few years. Their question is going to be, well, what's the history? What's the growth been like quarter by quarter or something like that over the last couple of years? Because you have been doing this for a while, and so let's understand, what's behind us and what's ahead of us.
Yeah, let me ask you a question on that, because there's a reason I leave that off. We had a jump in 2019. So I bootstrapped this whole thing. I've had customers paying for things off the platform for me to develop them for them. And so those were development costs. And so we charged those directly to the client, and then we were able to add that to the software. So we had a jump in 2019. And so the reason I leave that off, because if investors would look at that, they're going to say, oh, there was a jump in 2019 and now it went back down. And I think they'll freak out about that a little bit. So how would you suggest I handle that?
So the customer paid you to do some software development work?
Correct. And it was part of the platform, and we were able to add that service to the platform, extra features and things like that. But the customer paid for it. So we took that money in, and there's a good chunk of money. so it really increased our bottom line, but it's not, it doesn't affect our MRR at all,
It's
or,
not a recurring part of your revenue model.
correct.
It's,
Yes,
it's different kind of money. Well, I understand. Actually,
correct.
that's great money. I mean, that's some of the best money you can get. I mean,
Mhm.
you could bootstrap the company without giving up equity if you could get a few more of those kind of
Yep.
projects.
Mhm.
So when in doubt, tell the truth. Um, I I would lay it out, but I would show very clearly the distinction that this revenue was product development revenue. We were being paid for providing a service and developing some software. And then here's this other product line, row two is revenue that we actually obtained for our service.
Perfect. Yeah, that's a good answer.
So I would show both of them. I mean, it's a compliment. I mean, it's a positive thing about the company. I don't think it's anything to shy away from. But you're right. You don't want it to look like we got off to a great start and then it all fell apart.
Mhm.
But the answer is a different kind of revenue. You did a different thing. Could you do that again?
Well, absolutely, we could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that might want to be, well, investors would like that, I think. I mean, that might want to be part of your planning because that takes some of the load off your investor.
Mhm.
So, well, let me go back to the beginning. I'm going to make kind of a general point here because it's a point that I would probably want to make on more than one of your slides. When an investor listens to this kind of a presentation, he starts out with an empty brain. He has no concept where we're going or what you're talking about. And it's your job is to sort of fill up that brain space with as much information that he can understand as possible. And it goes kind of slide by slide, bullet by bullet. So when one of the first words on a slide is Shopify, and forgive me, but I know nothing about Shopify, my brain compartment remains empty.
Okay.
And I think the broader point here is that you need to create a context for what you're doing. And it kind of applies all the way through. You need to make sure that every time you say something, it's in the context of things that the audience has been kind of set up to understand. Well, let me see if I can take a little shot at it here. One of the real underlying theories here, and theory is the wrong word, but it's a trend, kind of a mega trend, is companies moving in the direction of a subscription model. Okay, fine. What's a subscription model? What does that mean? And why is that happening? See, if you don't answer those questions for me pretty early on, like maybe slide one, I'm kind of lost. I mean, because when you said subscription, the first time I heard subscription model, I'm thinking magazine. And I know that's not that's not where you're headed. So I would spend a little time. I think you want to define right up front what you mean by a subscription model. What's the trend? Why are companies moving in that direction? I assume it's because more and more stuff happening online.
Mhm.
But there's another piece to it which I don't think you really quite addressed, and that is that not every company's products are subscribable. I mean, I'm not going to subscribe to buy a bicycle. You subscribe to buy medicine for your dog, or so. I think there's an important distinction to make there. You're targeting companies that do in fact um, sell stuff using a subscription model. So what does that mean? I had the same problem when you put the slide up that showed Blue Apron and some of the other companies. I sort of vaguely know about Blue Apron, but I don't know most of the companies on that slide. So it left empty brain cells for me. You know, I needed more of a step by step, walk me into this so I understand what's really going on. And oh, by the way, what problem are they having? So here's another little mental gyration I got into. Um, you said these guys are moving toward a subscription model, but I think you said something like they don't even know how to set it up. So that sounds to me like startup companies rather than existing serious companies. I mean, I would rather have heard you say there's a lot of substantial companies out there that are doing a subscription model, but they got lots of problems. They don't do this right. They don't do this right. They don't do this right. They're lying awake at 2 o'clock in the morning, wishing they had a better way to do it. And that's where we come along. So I got a little tangled up between, are you just dealing with startups? Guys who are implementing the subscription model for the first time, or guys who already have a subscription model, um, but it's not working the way they want it to. You see the distinction that I'm making there?
Yeah. Well, just to clarify what it meant was that there's companies that are wanting to add the subscription to their current business, and they're the ones having difficulties. So I just need to clarify that a little bit better.
What kind of a company sells with a subscription model? I mean, that would be good to address that, I guess. Examples are a good way to talk about it.
Yeah. Salons are starting to do it, where instead of going in for a specific haircut or what have you, specific service, they're offering it on a subscription basis. So you pay $200 a month, and you can come in as much as you want to get your haircut or whatever you need during the month. And
that's great. That's a good example. I would do that practically on slide one. I mean, way early. Your whole premise here is everything is kind of based on this notion that there's this megatrend in the direction of companies that sell on a recurring basis, are trying to sell and price with a subscription model. So I think you need to describe that context and make it very clear exactly what the target is and what's driving this thing. As part of that, you want to make you may need a slide that explains exactly. You need to talk about exactly what problem these people have, but then also how you solve it. Exactly what are you providing that solves that. I think you addressed some of that, but if you ask me at the end to replay exactly how are you solving the problem, I'm not sure I could do that. How does your solution solve this problem? Yeah, I think I've already made this comment, I think, but I made a note that said that on the one hand, the subscription model was kind of integral to the business. On the other hand, they don't have anything that works yet. I think you need to clarify that. Are you dealing with people? I guess there are several logical possibilities. You could be dealing with people who are setting up a subscription model for the first time. They may be in a business and they want to switch to a subscription model, and you may be helping them do that. But there may also be people who are using a subscription model and just not doing it well and have lots of problems and need some help. Actually, that's a good question. I mean, is one of those more important than the other to you?
I think there's lower hanging fruit, which probably the companies that are just starting to get into a subscription model. So those are probably easier to sell for us than somebody that might be having problems. but they're both certainly both in our wheelhouse as far as the target market.
Another comment is that investors really don't like it when you throw big market numbers at them, $25 billion. And they're used to they hear all the time, all we have to do is get 1% of this $10 billion market, and we're in. What that sort of doesn't recognize is that there are a lot of studies that show that profitable companies, the successful ones, which are the ones that VCs want to invest in, usually have 20, 25% or more market share. So it does you no good to say, I'm going to get 1% of this huge market. I mean, you're not doing that. I understand that. You have done a good job of narrowing the definition. But what I would rather hear, I mean, it's okay to say there's this big universe out there and you can sort of segment it down step by step. But what I would like to hear is the description of the market that you're going to own 25% of. That's what I'm really more interested in, and in your case, you almost took it down too small. You're going down to heaters and air conditioning and gyms and boot camps, which I think your number was $8 million. That may almost be too small to get the attention of investors. Might be a good starting place. So I think you need to think that through a little bit. I mean, what I would, most investors, at least VCs, most of them will tell you, we need to see at least $50 million in sales in year 5, preferably 100 million. And if you were a biotech company, the number would be $1 billion. So if you can't show them a 5-year projection of at least maybe 15, 20, 25 million, the VCs are probably not going to be interested if it's less than 50, maybe even less than 100. Angels might be okay with a 5-year revenue forecast of 25 million or something like that. But part of your job in this presentation is to explain to them how they're going to get their money back. So you need to be able to say, look, if you put in this much money, you're going to own this percent of the company. It's going to get diluted because we're going to have to do 1 or 2 more rounds of financing. So in 5 years, when we hope to get acquired by somebody, your X percent will be worth 10 times the money you put in. That's what they want to hear. So you got to kind of walk them through that and show them how that's going to happen. And an important part of that is having a well-defended market forecast. But I think you've done a good job with the numbers. The problem is you haven't really shown me the market that you're going to own, the market that's going to make you profitable because you have a 25 or 30% market share. So I think that's important. Let's see, that's probably a good place to leave it for a minute. Do you have specific questions for me, or are there specific issues that are keeping you awake at night that I might be able to help with?
Yeah, I kind of broke it down to three pieces. So when I got to my team slide, you see that it's just me. And I have 2 advisors that I work with on a monthly basis, but they're not really part of the team. So I've been searching for co-founders for the business for a little bit now. I do have 2 candidates now that I've been talking with for a couple of weeks. But certainly from that area, it kind of divide and conquer. I wear a lot of hats and fundraising, which I'm finding out is a full-time job. And being that that's a full-time job, I can't focus on sales anymore or any other parts of the business. So definitely co-founders are kind of going to be key to that. Sales obviously is another big piece. So we're looking for new customers and those would all be great. Those are what show the with the fundraising, all the VCs that were, hey, we're still growing. We're getting new clients in every month. So that would certainly help. And then the fundraising itself, connecting with VCs and angels to actually fund the company. That's my three pillars I'm looking for.
If you haven't read it, this book behind me, the Fundable Startup, addresses a lot of those issues. It's a good book. I published it in 2018. Just to back up a second, you mentioned that you're a 3X entrepreneur. The VCs are going to ask, so how'd that work out for the investors?
Yeah, we didn't have investors with those companies, so it was all just me for both of those. Well, I had a partner with the web design company. He bought me out, and I was able to take the QOLOS clients with me. So that was part of the deal. The first company sold in 2018 or 2008, and I'm actually not supposed to talk about it. I have an NDA, so I can't.
Well,
speak.
but
I wanted to say something. I'm like, I should probably hold back.
I understand. but investors are going to want to dig in on that.
Yeah.
If you're going to say, look, I've done this before, their question's going to be, well, is it relevant to this? What do we learn from that? Those kinds of things. So, and I do think you're smart to be thinking about beefing up your team. One of the things that the Fundable Startup addresses is these terrible chicken and egg problems you get into. You can't get the people you want because you don't have the money, and you can't get the money because you don't have the people you want.
Yep.
I mean, you're doing what you have to do. You're kind of bootstrapping yourself. That's the real answer, is to build product, get customers, create value, move it as far forward as you can before you go approach investors. And I would just suggest that one of your key criteria for people that you bring into the team is, are they fundable? I mean, are they going to help you raise money?
Mm-hmm.
Do their backgrounds check out well? Have they helped build successful companies before? Those kinds of things. The other way to approach that is to hire real junior people and build more product, get more sales, support more customers, build from the bottom up. And the nice thing about that is if you can keep getting customers and growing your business, you create more value in the company before you do your deal. And you show investors that you can do what you said you're going to do. You have more opportunity to show investors that you can manage this thing.
Perfect. Yeah. The thing I struggle with that, so I did have a fork in the road at earlier this year. Like, so one direction I could have gone is exactly what you described: bootstrap it, keep going, create more value, and then go. Then it's easier to fundraise because I've gotten to this revenue amount, and it's more fundable at that revenue. But then I got into the accelerator. They're putting me in front of all these VCs and everything. So I'm like, well, okay, I can also fundraise. So both things solve my problem. I ultimately decided to go the VC route and fundraise because I thought the other way was just too slow. And part of the reason it's too slow is because of my revenue model. So a customer cost, or a customer is revenue, what they're worth to the company is over time. So they're worth $5,000 over 3 years. Bringing that customer in, so I could spend $500 to get that customer in and be okay with that. But spending $500 and getting that customer in today doesn't give me any revenue today to hire somebody with. So it's hard to generate upfront revenue with my revenue model. So that's really where I kind of said to myself, hey, I think going the fundraising route would be better because now we can move faster. And ultimately that's why I decided to go that route. Not to say that way I can't go back the other way, but that's where we are today.
Yeah, no, I understand. It's a hard problem. Like I said, it's a chicken and egg problem. But that's exactly what my book is about. It's the Fundable Startup: How Disruptive Companies Attract Capital. It's available on Amazon. I'd hand you a copy if you were across the room.
I might have read it already. I want to say I've read it or at least read part of it. I'm not a big book reader, but I've at least heard of it.
Good.
I want to say it's out there. I'm familiar with it.
Well, look, let's wrap up. I think you've got a good idea. I do think you can do a better job of packaging the idea and try and hold on to this notion of context. And there's a right sequence and a wrong sequence for saying things in one of these pitches. You know, you gotta very early on you have to create a very clear context, help the audience understand exactly what you're doing, exactly why you're doing it, how it solves the problem. And then, yeah, you got to go deal with markets and competition and all the detailed stuff. But if you address those kinds of things and use words that people don't understand, like Shopify, or maybe Blue Apron, or maybe subscription, you got to walk me through all that stuff so that when you use those words, I know what you mean.
Gotcha.
So I think it's a writing challenge, it's sort of a communication challenge as much as anything. I would also focus on defining that market you're going to own. You know, if you think 8 million is your revenue number, or what, I would go out 5 years, and because your challenge with investors is to explain to them how they're going to make a return on their investment. They need to come away from your presentation understanding exactly how they're going to get their money back. I don't remember if you address exit or not. Do you talk at all of?
Yeah, I'm looking for acquisition. But to better explain that target market too, I think you're right on the. I've gotten some feedback on that before, and I don't think I've taken it to heart as much as when you mentioned it. I think you just explained it better. But that bottom number is our short-term target market. You know, so that number should be bigger when we look at the total addressable market and what we plan to do in 5 years. So that's more like a 2-year plan with that 8 million, and it's not well said in the slide. So that was really good feedback. I understand what you're thinking when you see that slide and how I need to change it to make more sense.
Well, remember, the investor sitting there wondering how he's going to make a return on investment, which is all about what kind of profits, what kind of cash flow can this company generate, what kind of additional capital requirements is it going to have, how does that all play back into my pocketbook 5 or 7 years from now. So you need to spell that out for them as carefully as you can. Chad, thank you. Nice to chat with you. I think you've got a good business idea, and you've got lots of energy. You're not new to this. You've done it before. You're going to go make something happen.
I really appreciate that. It's awesome, and thanks for taking the time to go through this and give me your feedback. It's really valuable. Really appreciate it.
Viewers, thanks for tuning in. Be sure and listen to the next Pitch Tips program that we do, and also subscribe to our video channel. There are a lot of content there having to do with startups. We're trying to provide a very rich content and help you make your startup successful. So subscribe and come back and see us next time. Thanks, Chad.
Yeah, thank you.